I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, April the 8th, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services. Of course, Dakota Moss and all of his agents here, they are your LRP specialists, and there's no outfit out there that is better to help keep you up to date with what's going on with USDA's Risk Management Agency and to get you through these tumultuous times, because they might decide you can't ride any LRPs certain days, and tell you what, these guys are doing it day in, day out. They can do it anywhere you're at, all over the country. Check them out at livestockriskservices.com. Also, Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma, they had a little bit of moisture over the weekend. It wasn't as wet as the bulk of Oklahoma, but the dry Oklahoma Panhandle did get a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch of moisture there, and it came slow and kind of misty and soaked every drop of it in. But it's more so the market that's going to keep the cattle away. It could be a little muddy in some places there, but Conk told me they're going to have the lightest run that they've had in 4 years. And that's about how long that they've been advertising with Feeder Flash here in DV Auction. So I'd like to think that has something to do with it, but only expecting around 1,500 head with the market, you know, so much uncertainty with it and everything. But still have a decent offering there, 400 to 500 head of calves there, and mostly lighter weights, 3 to 5 weights. Only about half of them will be weaned, but there'll be new croppers. About 1,000 head of yearlings, only 150 head of yearling heifers. They'll be weighing 600 to 700 pounds mostly. No load lots included in the yearling heifers. About 850 head of yearling steers, mostly weighing 700 to 900 pounds there. And they do have a couple of really premier consignments there. They've got 300 head of yearling steers, and I mean the quality be out of this world. There'll be red Angus and black Angus, and 2 deals coming from Dodge City, Kansas, and they'll be right off the wheat. Really nice, guys. So be sure and check them out. Then on Wednesday, they're having the Beaver Bound Bull Sale. I'm going to have 40 head of replacement bulls. They'll be ranging from Charolais, Black and Red Angus, Hereford, and Sim Angus, all from local breeders around there. So that'll be a good opportunity to get you an insurance bull to help out some of your local breeders there. Then they're going to have their regular cow sale, only 200 to 300 head, mostly weigh-ups and some older bred cows and things. It's still pretty decent offering of sales at Beaver County Stockyards this week, and you can view and bid all their sales at DVAuction.com. No expansion of losses. Now, the market was lower, or the futures were lower on Monday. We expected them to be lower, but we were scared of the expanded limits. If they had wanted to, your feeder cattle could have gone down 12 1/4 on Monday, and the live cattle could have went down 975. Thank God we didn't need that. They were lower again, but really not much lower than a typical type day. Maybe some of your live cattle contracts for early summer were lower than a typical day whenever we see some up and down trade there, but it's just rough all over. But you know, they didn't need to go even the old limits, let alone the newly expanded limits. So that's a blessing there, and maybe we'll find some footing here as we go forward. We're starting to see what all this stuff's going to entail. Beef exports to China are now going to face a 56% tariff after their retaliatory tariffs there. So, you know, that's going to dwindle that down to nearly nothing. The hell of it is, they're just now going to be getting some tariffs, and they're going to be less, or about half that, maybe 34% or something, on China, on the products that they send over here. And like I said on Monday's report, and a lot of you thought it was funny, those Chingolettas and Doohickey Mojaves and widgets and all that kind of stuff. The hell of it is, though, we can eat ours, even if we have to grind it up, which they've talked, we may have to grind that up to get rid of it. Some of the product, our beef anyway, that they have been taking. But we can eat it. They can't eat those things. And they're not going to find anybody else that has the money or the desire to buy those things that they make over there in those sweatshops. And we're going to win this. If they want a trade war, bring it on. We're going to end up winning it. And you guys just have to have some patience here. And I think most of the cattle people do. And, you know, we've been talking about our board being down so hard. It's not the cattle people that have lost, you know, their faith in what's going on here. It's the speculators and the managed money. And so I think the cattle people are feeling pretty good about things. That, yeah, they didn't bring their cattle to the sale in big bunches on Monday. You can't blame them when they know they're going to bring $10 to $20 a hundred less than what they did. What they would have a week ago. You know, why would they bring them? They don't have to bring them. Most everybody's way ahead on selling stuff because the market's been so good. But some of our other trade interruptions there, but this is probably not going to change that much, is Brazil. And I was looking back on Brazil's meat exports or imports into this country, and you know how they get all that lean meat that we use to grind up with our fat trim. They were on a quota there. They filled their quota. They had a non-tariff quota early this year. They filled it in 17 days, and so then they have already been under a tariff, which we didn't have hardly any tariffs anywhere, but Brazil actually did have a 26.4% tariff before we even started talking about these new tariffs here the other day. And they've been going right along with it. Now, the 10% tariff that's now added to everything Brazil, is that going to be on top of that? I'm not clear on that, and I'm not sure if who is clear on that, and I'm not sure where Canada and Mexico really land, because they've had these different percentage tariffs that are added up, and I'm not sure where we're at on those. But Brazil has been paying a tariff, and it's made them had to have less competitive with Australia and Paraguay and places like that. And I'm not sure if Trump has completely outlawed our imports of Australian beef like he should, since they haven't taken any of ours since the cow that stole Christmas all the way back in 2003. You know, I think we should do unto others as they do unto us, and that's kind of like we've been talking about these tariffs, but it's unsure. But Brazil increased the amount of their beef coming into our country 66% last year compared to the previous year. So, and we know why that is. It's because they got two of the big four that are based out of there, and then our product has got short, especially our grinding product, and they brought it over there to add value to all the trim, and that's just the way that goes. But you know, we're just full of uncertainty right now. We're not sure what's going to happen, but the world didn't come to an end on Monday, and it's really wet around. That's one reason that has slowed trade a little bit. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri, one of our favorite sale barns and a DV auction broadcaster, is not going to be having their feeder cattle auction here today on Tuesday. It was just too wet. Lots of stories about cattle that were washing down creeks and rivers and streams, going to, you know, neighbors that were a long ways down the line, and authorities trying to get the cattle back to where they belonged. Just super wet there. Of course, they could be in a drought in 2 weeks. There's a lot of rocks around there. But what few calves and yearlings that they had come in, they're just going to sell them on Wednesday. at the regular cow and bull sale. So don't look for Ozarks Regional Stockyard out of West Plains here today on Tuesday. I want to talk to you about the Punchy Pick of the Month contest. We just had it the other day, and it was a lot of fun. And you know, it'll be coming around the corner here just any minute. We're already getting more picks in for this month's contest. Of course, we couldn't do it without our sponsors, Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma. You're going to get a lot of cool swag from them. They help us put this on. They've been with us from the very start of that. You're going to get some cool swag that I don't even have from NationalBeefWire and Feeder Flash. Of course, Great Plains Livestock Consulting donates the $200 Cavender's gift certificate to the Kids Corral pick winner every month. And then the best part of the prize package, of course, is a fair piece. You get a whole case of it to try out for yourself there. It's that revolutionary product that's scientifically proven. But just be thinking about that whenever you see something punchy happen in your everyday activities. You can just email that picture to punchy at nationalbeefwire.com and you're automatically entered. Doesn't cost you a thing. Let's talk about your board on Monday. April live cattle futures were down 370 at 198.92. June was down 402. Ouch, that's rough. At 194.17. None of them are trading over $2 a pound anymore, even though our latest weighted average in your 5-area feeding region for cash steers was 211.14. We don't have any live cattle futures trading over $2. That's how far out of touch they can get. But as we start getting closer to the end of the month, they will start showing up a little bit there. I don't think we're going to lose that much ground in our cash markets, but your far out sales on your live cattle futures were down 127 to down 417. Feeder cattle for April down $1.60 at 277.82. That's a long stretch to the 290 plus where your cash index levels are trading, and we are getting fairly well through the month here, so it's going to have to start paying attention to that too. May feeder cattle down 360 at 271.27, and your back months of feeder cattle down 237 to down $3 smooth. Your grains have already kind of found footing and coming back. May corn was up 4 1/4 cents a bushel at 464.5 on Monday. Your beans for May up 6 cents a bushel at 9.83, and hard red winter wheat for May was up 1 3/4 cents a bushel at 559 1/4. Your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade on a direct basis in your 5-area feeding region totaled 58,900 last week, compared to 52,800 the previous week and 65,900 the same week a year ago. Live sales on a direct basis, fat steers and heifers in your 5-area ranged from 204 to 215. That's steady to just $2 lower. Your weighted average on live steers was exactly $1 lower at 211.14. So, you know, not terrible. Dress sales ranged from 329 to 345. That was steady to only $1 lower, but your weighted average was more than that. It was $1.85 lower at 336.47. 5-area weighted average on dress steers. As a whole, your Southern Plains market was 1 to 2 lower at mostly 208, with the bulk of that trade on Friday. Northern Plains steady to $3 lower live from 210 to 213. Dress sales steady to 10 lower from 335, ranging up a few dollars from there, with some all the way up to 345. But nationwide, we sold 73,100 negotiated cash last week, compared to 62,600 the previous week and 80,000 the same week a year ago. Of that 73,100, about 23% of them, which is more than we've had since this last rally here, were for the 15 to 30 day delivery. So they're going to use that to kind of hold us underwater, even if this thing does bounce back, which it could take a while to do that. But negotiated grid sales last week totaled 43,400 head, Forward contracts last week totaled 45,700 head, and formula sales 248,200 head. Of the 4 out of 5 areas that we get information from, in negotiated cash last week, Iowa sold 24,100, Nebraska sold 24,300, Kansas sold 6,600, and Texas just 4,000 head. Box beef cutout values were higher to start the week. It's funny that the tariff hasn't bothered them, and we're not worried about tariffs on live cattle so much, not especially not to those ones that are on other continents. But our beef was higher, and the damn cattle futures keep going lower. You guys figure that one out. Choice cuts up $1.05 at $339.50. Selects up $2.12 at $319.30. Your slaughter was about typical from what we've been seeing here. 108,000 estimated cattle slaughter to start the week on Monday. 4,000 more than last week. 12,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Limousine and Limflex is a way to put some continental frame in your cattle, guys. They're focusing on feed efficiency, improved marbling, continued superior yield grade, calving ease. The ones that were bidding on the Wolf Cattle Company sale to me here just last week, I had 300 people watching almost the whole sale, and nearly 200 were registered to bid, and got over 2,000 bids there. They were sopping up those limousine bulls, guys. But let Limousine and Limflex take you full circle at NALF.org. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance, working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Monday, sitting at 290.47, up 66 cents from being down late last week. And you're like, oh, the sales weren't worth a damn. How could they be up? Wait till I show you what cattle are still bringing, guys. And people aren't completely done. But up 66 cents from late last week or ending last week. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index sitting at 290 smooth. Sale that's coming up here over the weekend you might want to check out. I'm actually going to be there at El Campo, Texas, at El Campo Livestock Exchange. The Pearl of the Prairie special, replacement special on Saturday, April the 12th at noon. They've got 40 Charolais bulls for sale and 750 Bramer Cross females, and a lot of them will be those tiger stripe Brafords that everybody likes down on the coast, guys. But you can do your bidding at DVAuction.com if you can't make it to the sale, but it's a good place to go on a Saturday. Let's talk about your big sales on Monday. Nobody had a big sale. Everybody was scared of the market. They knew it was going to be a bunch lower. It was a bunch lower. That's just the way it goes. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City had 1,600s all. The feeder steers are $5 to $10 lower. Feeder heifers $12 to $15 lower. We've been used to these kind of price trends. They've just been higher all along. But steer calves steady to 15 lower. Heifer calves 20 to 25 lower. So it's just lower, and these kind of wide ranges in our trends have been kind of normal here over the last several months. They've just been going the other way. Joplin Regional Stockyards had 3,250 head. It was lower there too, but not so much on the feeder steers. They were only $2 to $4 lower. Steer calves 10 to 25 lower. Feeder heifers 5 to 15 lower, and heifer calves 15 to 30 lower. When the market's tough, it's your heifer calves that have a hard time finding friends. It was that way also at Russell Livestock Market in Russell, Iowa, where they had 3,900 head. Biggest sale we saw on Monday, and the steers were moderately lower, heifers sharply lower, but they were your NationalBeefWire stick out sale of the day. Check out this automated market report through Russell, Iowa there. And those local producers brought their cattle in, even though they knew it was going to be tighter. Russell has been kind of going to every other week specials, so If you wanted to get them sold there at Russell, like most everybody does in that area, you needed to get them in, and they did. Look at your best tested weights. How about 294 head of 4-weight steer calves, average 456 pounds, weighted average price 402.73. 501 head of 5-weight steers, average 538 at 355.42. 689 head of 6-weight steers, average 648 at 331.89. And 406 head of 7-weight steers, average 746 with a weighted average price of 305.10. And I don't think anybody would scoff at any of those weighted average prices there. Individual quotes would be just fine there too. How about heifers? 271 head of 4-weight heifer calves, average 454 at 349.15. 570 head of the 5-weight heifers, average 545 at 323.52. 380 head of 6-weight heifers, average 633 at 291.81. And 268 of the feeder heifers there at Russell Livestock Market in Russell, Iowa, the average 724 with a weighted average price of 266.55. And you're probably thinking, oh, there's no way you could find any individual quotes that would impress you. Okay, how about this? How about up in Faith, South Dakota, Faith Livestock Auction? They sell 61 fancy steer calves, weighed 510 pounds at $399, just like nothing ever happened. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota. 60 head of steers, weighed 810 pounds at $3 smooth, and you thought there was no way. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.